At the start of part 2, we are shown a snippet of the blackout from 14 days ago. There are cars crashing everywhere, people falling to the ground, and a bus driving into a pond. The guy inside the bus, whose head is still above the water when the blackout ends, assists a woman in escaping from the drowned bus. The scene then shifts to a hospital where the same guy who saved the woman is talking to Bryce and Olivia and introducing himself as Ned. Ned is quite cordial with the two doctors as a result of a morphine drip. Bryce inquires with Ned about his flash, and the latter replies that during that time he saw himself dressed in leather pants and rocking a nightclub that he is too afraid to attend. He also mentions that he visioned himself as black, totally opposite to what his skin color is now. Because they believe that the morphine is showing its effects, Olivia and Bryce leave Ned alone and ask him to rest. Following this, Olivia expresses her dissatisfaction with Bryce's present behavior, which includes the fact that he hasn't been going to the psychiatrist he was supposed to visit every week in light of his attempted suicide just before the blackout. She tells him that, if he wants his position at the hospital, he should visit the psychiatrist regularly. In the next scene, Demetri and Zoe can be seen discussing their forthcoming wedding, but Demetri isn't paying attention to the conversation. Noticing this, Zoe asks him about what has happened. Demetri replies that it's due to work, but Zoe already knows that it's due to the blonde lady Demetri recently detained. She then suggests he investigate thoroughly about the lady and punish her harshly if she is proven guilty of causing the blackout. Meanwhile, Charlie's babysitter, Nicole, tells her sponsor, Aaron, that she has been having problems ever since the blackout. Aaron makes an effort to soothe her by saying that everyone in their flash forward saw what they did for a purpose. Nicole then reveals to him that she is resuming her babysitting job at Benford's. To follow up on the information he obtained last week in Germany, Mark wants to travel to Somalia. Wedek is reluctant to keep flying Mark around the globe since he doesn't think the trip to Germany was as effective as Mark says. Despite Wedek's reluctance, Mark suggests they use a hacker whom Agent Go arrested a few years back to hack into the computers at Langley and extract the evidence about Somalia. On the other hand, Alda Herzog, the lady Demetri detained earlier, is being questioned by him, but she is stalling and asking to speak to a lawyer. Because her colleagues are dead, she gives Demetri the name of Customer Choice Restaurant Group and asks him to investigate further before it's too late. In the following scene, Wedek seems more influenced by Demetri's claim of a dirty bomb than by Mark's idea of a blackout in Somalia, so he orders Mark to assist Demetri and accompany him to Indio. On their trip to Indio, California, Mark and Demetri are pursuing the bomb makers. While the two are at the Customer Choice Restaurant Group and giving their orders for food, the fast food cook runs away as soon as the waiter yells the word FBI agents. Mark and Demetri notice the cook running and start chasing him. After a brief chase that takes them into a trailer park, Mark and Demetri are able to apprehend the cook. They find a box from his bag with yellow cake pasted on the exterior and suspect it is a bomb. However, when they open it, it appears to simply contain a stock of nickel bags of marijuana. Demetri ultimately admits to Mark that he is aware that he would be killed on March 15th, which is why he is trying his best to find a killer. At the hospital, Lloyd Simcoe meets Olivia and asks her for guidance on how to cope with Dylan during his autistic outbursts. During this time, Lloyd can see that Olivia feels uncomfortable when he speaks to her and is baffled by her reaction. However, Lloyd is struggling too much as he tries to deal with both Dylan's condition and his wife's passing. When Olivia finally relaxes, she suggests that he spend a few nights at home rather than attempting to snooze in Dylan's medical chair. Later, Bryce obtains the CT scan results for Ned, and when he presents it to Olivia, she observes a reasonable-sized hematoma in his head. She also mentions that if they had neglected it any longer, the blood clot would have killed him. Olivia is also annoyed by Bryce's constant discussion of everyone's flash forwards since she doesn't want any medical advice to be based on the flash forward details of the patient. Following this, when Olivia and her team are about to perform the surgery on Ned, Bryce finds some information about his surgery online and suggests to Olivia that they must halt the procedure before it kills him. He then mentions that Ned suffers from Addison's disease, which causes him to create melanin rather than adrenaline, responsible for his calm demeanor and his darker skin tone in the flash forward. However, when Bryce warns Olivia that conducting surgery on Ned without enough adrenaline in his system to endure the shock may put him in danger, she refuses to hear him and even prepares to throw him out of the hospital. Keeping Bryce out of the operation room, Olivia proceeds with the surgery and fails. At last, she accepts that Ned is actually suffering from Addison's disease and works accordingly. Meanwhile, Herzog is evasive when Mark attempts to interrogate her again. She does admit, though, that she communes with some really dangerous individuals, some of whom are prepared to put on a vest and make the ultimate sacrifice in order to achieve their goals. Mark doesn't say anything, but he goes and asks him to hack into Langley to obtain the photographs of Somalia. At the hospital, Ned praises Bryce for assisting him, but the latter attributes it to Ned's flash, which helped him to detect that he is suffering from Addison's disease. Because she didn't want to trust her own flash, Olivia apologizes to Bryce but still says she does not believe Ned's flash. Meanwhile, Nicole goes back to the Benford residence and confides in Mark about her flash while still feeling scared. She says that someone was trying to drown her and that she can clearly remember the face. Hearing this, Mark promises that they'll get some assistance in finding the individual who attempted to drown her. Back at the hospital, Lloyd receives a call from a person named Simon. He reluctantly picks the call and surprisingly, the mysterious man tells him that the two of them are responsible for the blackout. In the following scene, Mark, Demetri, Wedek, and another agent, Vreed, are in DC to ask approval for funding their project. Suddenly, a big SUV rear-ends their car. 4 individuals of Asian origin emerge from the SUV, and one of them launches a missile towards the car to blow it up. The scene then shifts back 39 hours where Demetri is summoned to a conference space in the US Senate's basement. They don't trust him even though he previously admitted in his affidavit that he didn't see anything in his flash. We watch Mark and Vreed's polygraph examinations in relation to their flashes. When finished, Mark phones Aaron, who is now making some repairs at his home. Aaron proposes Mark attend an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting while in Washington since he is feeling the burden of the current circumstances. On the other hand, Wedek is under increased strain as Demetri, and Vreed assist him in gathering information to maintain funding for the Mosaic Collective, the web application that they are using to collect information about people's flash forward. Wedek mentions that he has spent time in DC and reports that it isn't a pleasant place. He also summons an old acquaintance and the US President, Dave, for some extra help and deep understanding about the matter. Dave cautions him to tread very carefully and warns him about someone named Clement presiding over the financing hearings. Meanwhile, as Janice and Go examine satellite images of Somalia from the CIA taken during the Crow Death incident, in 1991, the president tells the media that they are trying to coordinate their efforts to properly fund the appropriate agencies that have the best chance of providing leads to the cause of the blackout. Like other global leaders, the president has chosen not to share his own flash, although it is shown that it involves a Secret Service operative waking him up and informing him of a situation. After hearing a portion of Aaron's conversation with Mark, Olivia speaks with Aaron about her husband's alcohol-related issues. She is, to put it mildly, worried due to the similarity of the current circumstance and her flash. Hearing this, Aaron instructs her to continue moving forward and assist Mark the best way she can. Elsewhere, Wedek meets with the president in the Oval Office after the news conference. Wedek is given the chance to work in the government as the Director of Homeland Security, which makes him think for a moment. During the court hearing, Senator Clement gives Wedek a less than subtle introduction, and during a break, she accuses him of sabotaging her chances of becoming the president. She wanted to discredit Wedek's plans before he ever had a chance to speak, but in her flash, she saw herself as the president. Wedek reveals that his department is keeping track of every caller's flash forwards and analyzing the information. He is prepared to use numerous pieces of undeniable evidence that Mark and the Mosaic have found, but Clement isn't listening to him. In order to delay the other senators on the committee, Clement instructs Mark to take the stand the next day. After a successful evening with Maya, a female chef, at her restaurant, Janice awakens the next morning to talk about their flash forwards. However, since Maya was wearing a wedding band and Janice didn't want to reveal that she was 6 months pregnant at the time, they both tell lies. Janice then leaves for work, asking Maya to lock the door once she leaves. Later, Janice arrives at the workplace and starts reviewing the satellite images. She along with Go discover the image they were searching for, a satellite image of a tower in the middle of nowhere in Somalia. Meanwhile, in DC, Mark reveals the existence of the guy in Detroit and discusses the Crow fatalities on the day of the blackout. Senator Noland is curious as to why the Los Angeles office conducted its own investigations without seeking DC clearance. With names, locations, and events listed on a large board in his office, Mark explains how he seemed himself to be the lead person in the investigation in his flash, until Mark mentions masked gunmen attempting to kill him in his flash forward. Clement doesn't believe him. However, Clement points out an issue that Mark has only mentioned seeing things for around 30 seconds in his polygraph interview, while the majority of other individuals have clearly recalled the whole 137 seconds. Naturally, Mark is hesitant to admit that he was drinking during his flashback, but Clement does not hold back when he accuses the LA office of fraud. Annoyed, Wedek leaves the court. Furthermore, Demetri is forced to acknowledge that everything they have discovered so far could appear a little odd to an outsider. Frustrated, Wedek invites Janice to DC and requests a favor from her. But sadly, Janice also faces problems when Maya discovers her flash-forward details regarding her pregnancy on Mosaic. In the following scene, Wedek meets the president and talks to him about Clement trying to cut off her funding. Hearing this, the president calls Clement and tells her to stop harassing Wedek, much to the delight of the latter. Meanwhile, Demetri is drinking excessively at a bar since he believes that he only has 5 months to live. Just then, Wedek criticizes Mark for giving a horrible performance in front of Clement, which prompts the latter to reveal that he was actually under the influence of alcohol in the middle of his flashback. Hearing this, Wedek realizes that the information Mark provided him could have some errors. The fact that Wedek doesn't inform Demetri or Vreed about the funding problems and instead purchases them some rounds clearly portrays that he is a far better boss than he shows. To complicate things, someone texts Olivia with the news that Mark was drinking during his flash, but she is unable to identify the sender. While making their way to the parking lot, the group watches news of President Dave nominating Clement to take the place of the vice president, who died during the blackout. Wedek is upset that Clement's flash could come true. The series then shifts back to the scene when 4 Asian men attack Wedek and his group. At this time, Mark is talking with Janice over the phone and giving her information about their funding being approved. Suddenly, the Asian men collide with their car and fire a missile at them. Janice hears the collision, but before she could react, she is attacked by 2 men in Los Angeles. Despite getting wounded in the process, she shoots and kills them both. Just as the car explodes and everyone runs out with firearms, Mark, Demetri, Wedek, and Vreed narrowly escape. 2 of the hired murderers are killed by them, while the other 2 manage to flee. The episode ends with Janice regaining her eyesight while lying in the street, bleeding. Subscribe to see more videos like this, turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Don't forget to watch part 3. Thanks for watching.